Mike Pollock, am I right?
Yeah, no kidding. And then just to sort of, an homage, huh? You know what I'm saying?
There it is.
Still do.
So, Mike, we talked a lot about your earlier days and your progression from doing theater as a kid and loving the limelight of the stage to getting into radio and being a part of the production team, and then getting into writing comedy and the music parodies and also performing. So I think in this episode, I think fans are really going to want to hear about doing the work that you're known so well for.
Perfect. I would also love to wallow in my big firing, because that actually ties into getting into this full time. So,
right. And for those of you who haven't heard the previous episode, Mike was unjustly fired. But I
not
think
necessarily.
Well, we'll just say
Depends on
fired.
who you ask.
Okay. Well, so hold that story, and then let's get to it.
All right, here we go.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Hey, this is Dan Green.
And Eric Stuart.
And we are with the beautiful and talented Mike Pollock.
That's because he wears fantastic shirts,
Thank you so much.
which he's going to explain as well.
That's right. This is part 2 of episode 18. So, Mike, your shirts.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Oh, there's a story behind the shirts. We're jumping ahead, then we're going to jump back because we have to
Very
discuss
good.
my
Let's do-
firings.
That's
but
fine.
first,
We'll
shirts.
jump around, yes.
There was a Sonic event here in New York. Sonic, I forget the name of it now. Sonic Boom. Yes, 2014. And I figured, all right, I've done a lot of appearances, and I should probably start wearing something flashy. I looked in my closet on very short notice, didn't have anything flashy, but as it turned out, I had a couple of pirate shirts, satin pirate shirts in the closet, because who doesn't? Well, am I right? And I figured, well, maybe if I tuck this into pants and, I don't know, wear a vest and maybe a coat, no one will notice. But that worked fine
And have
for
a
the
scabbard.
first appearance. Basically, shades of Jerry Seinfeld. Right. And days after the event, no one commented on the shirt. They probably were too kind to do so. But riding on a bus up 6th Avenue in Manhattan, what should catch my eye? But there was
treasure
a store.
chest.
No, thank you. There was a store on the right side of 6th Avenue, not there since the pandemic, with a window full of satin shirts and vests.
Oh.
Hey, stop the bus! Didn't stop the bus. But after I conducted whatever business I was attending to, went back, took a look, and it was this lovely cash-only operation, as only New York can have, with a whole wall full of satin shirts in every color of the rainbow.
Oh, boy.
And I said, these would be great to wear in public. So I just grabbed as many as I could in my own size, in every color, and started wearing them to conventions. And it became a trademark signature look.
Yes.
Now, the pandemic has claimed that business, but fortunately, they're still available online from various retailers.
I think that's great. I love that. I love that that's one of your things. Like,
Thank you.
if anything, I'm a fan of consistency, as Dan will tell you.
Yes,
pretty much
you are.
Yes. My closet is filled with all the same black T-shirts.
Of course.
So there you go. But yeah, no, they are fantastic. For those of you who have not seen them, if you follow Mike on Twitter, you'll see some of the pictures that he posts when he is making those appearances, and they are fantastic. So yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that
but
story.
let's get to the meat that we were getting at earlier, which is how this firing set you up for what became of the rest of your career.
Sure. The radio syndication company, parts of it were boring, but parts of it were fun. There was the song parodies and comedy bits, tons of fun. There was some regurgitating of news stories, which was a service we provided, which I didn't really understand because we were actually writing news the night before or the afternoon before. And I'm thinking, we're selling this to radio stations who want yesterday's news? Okay, fine. And that was going along swimmingly until the company got sold and a big chunk of us were laid off. I was laid off, and they said, well, we'll hire you back as soon as the sale is finished, but we have to, okay, great. And then 9/11 happened. There was a whole thing. But during that intervening time, I said, well, I can't sit idly by. Let me sneak back into work, build a demo tape, and start sending it out. Sent out demo cassettes that I made myself, one of which was picked up by the lovely and talented Michael Sinter-Nicholas at NYAV Post, who booked me in my first real-live anime role in Demon Fighter Kocho. and I was able to then return the favor for him by sneaking him into auditions for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles years later. And then sent out another demo tape, which apparently some guy named Eric Stuart heard and liked. That got me into an episode of Pokemon. And that was when 4Kids TV was all getting started, and he brought me in for that. And I became the voice of the promo guy for a while, and then all the stuff I read for Yu-Gi-Oh! Originally as the opening narration, didn't book that, but Eric remembered me for other stuff on Yu-Gi-Oh! Later on, and then the 4Kids TV stuff happened. And so I remember vividly the moment of getting my first series role. Actually, backtracking, the promo thing was actually very cool. We were moving from Manhattan to the suburbs. I was filthy, packing boxes, and the phone rang. And it was the promo guys saying, "We're looking for a guy for a promo voice, and we're making promos now. Can you come on down?" Now? And I asked my wife, "Honey, can you keep packing? I have to go to work." And I went in and started doing promos, which was excellent. And auditions happened. There was the Yu-Gi-Oh! Narration. Didn't happen. But later Arthur Hawkins in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a lovely thing. And then Kirby Right Back At Ya was the first recurring series that I booked as the mayor. And I remember we were out having Chinese food and the phone rang. And I was offered a series. I said, "You bet I will." And that snowballed into reading for Meat, which was another lovely booking. And Eric remembered me for other stuff, Viva Piñata, as Langston Licketoe.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Langston. Yeah, I totally how that was something I forgot. That's one of my favorite roles you play.
Fondly remembering our goofing around as we recorded stuff for that. Big Oriki in Go-Go.
That was a cute show.
Was another fun thing. And then all the other stuff, the Sonic stuff, of course, perhaps you've heard of him. And little bit parts and all sorts of things. As someone once referred to me online, Mike playing authoritarians and old men. Okay, I guess that checks out.
That's fine. Whatever pays the bills, right?
Sure.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's amazing once you got your foot in the door, how you were getting cast in these things and showing up to do the job. Like this was definitely something related to what you were doing because you had been on air as a radio personality and doing these parody things. So you understood the comedy side of it. But this was different. Like you said, you weren't as much of a geek when it came to the fandom stuff that maybe Dan and I, like Dan and I are. But you immediately knew what to do.
Yeah,
I don't remember you even being like, these are beeps and wait a second, the script has numbers and there's time code. Like none of that stuff was like foreign to you, even though the process was foreign.
Fortunately, I had on-the-job training at the NYV Post thing. Demon Fighter Kocho was my first ever anime dubbed anything. It wasn't my first real-life professional recording. The first one, apart from doing some stuff at the radio stations before I was the voice of a talking gorilla head on the Syracuse Zoo bus.
Doing my best work, yes.
Thank you. Doing my brilliant Humphrey Bogart impression. Hi, kids. And then the other real-life first animated show was Little Tug's Big Adventure, which was recorded in somebody's bedroom. But it was live action footage of boats, and I played all the male boats except for the ones they didn't want me to use me for and replace me for some of them, which is fine. But the dubbing thing I learned with Cinder Nicholas, and I was adept enough at that by the time we got to the first Pokemon thing that I looked like I knew what I was doing. But even to this day, I still have a very radio sensibility. Sometimes I forget to look at the screen. Oh, I forgot there's video. Sorry. But that, fortunately, with the magic of digital editing, you don't know that. And there was actually bonus firing. That wasn't the big firing. I was moonlighting on the syndication job and skipping out for 2-hour lunches until the boss said, "No 2-hour lunches. You can only do 1-hour lunch now." But I would zap out, record what we could record, and zap back to work. And work eventually came to an end when Heath Ledger died. Oh, was he there?
Oh,
no,
wow.
But here's how that happened. One of the things they had me doing, thanks to budget cuts, was celebrity birthdays. Loathed it. But I found ways to cut corners by taking it from the Associated Press, updating some of the movies that people were in, and the boss seemed to like it. Until eventually I hated it so much that I subcontracted it to a friend or relative who I will not name, but I became complacent and neglected to check their work. So one week I submitted birthdays, and the trick was, you take last year's, add a year, add whatever new movies there are, send it in. My subcontractor did not know that Heath Ledger had died recently, I didn't check it, but the boss did. And she said, "What's Heath Ledger doing in here?" I don't know. And I was summarily removed in my position, in which case, when voiceover became very much more important to my living. So that was that. But radio's now in the past.
Yes.
And that's fine.
Yes.
Wow, that's a great story. So what of all the characters that you've portrayed, this is a thing that fans would ask, what's the favorite? I mean, a lot of people would assume you would say Eggman.
What I usually answer is my favorite will always be the next one, because I don't.
That's a great answer.
Playing favorites is. As some singer, I want to say it's Tom Jones, and I don't remember. Hi, kids, Tom Jones, Google it. Some singer said, "I don't want to tell you what my favorite song is, because then when I'm singing anything else, you'll say, well, he doesn't like that one as much. Or, oh, this is his favorite. So my favorite is your favorite. Dr. Eggman is the gift that keeps on giving. It's going to be 20 years in August.
Amazing.
And that's, sorry to those of you who didn't carry on to the other series. But that's a delightful gift.
I don't take it personally.
No.
I understand.
No.
But he is always a delight and a joy whenever they ask me to perform. But my joy comes for performing. So anything I'm doing at that moment, this is the greatest thing ever.
Right. Well, another element that's part of the hero's journey that I think is universally relatable, there's a whole thing called the trials, the difficult things, the challenges that we have to get through to get to where we're going. What about that idea resonates with you at all?
As I've learned, especially now that I've been doing this and not having a day job, the job of an actor is searching for work. It is a notoriously short-lived career. You're in a thing until you're not in a thing. Voiceover has the potential of doing multiple things at once, but when it wraps, it wraps. So you're always looking
and this is even though you've been doing the same character for 20 years, you still have to find other work.
Sure. Dr. Eggman, if I'm lucky, unless there's a series going on, which there isn't, I'm not in it, it's 5 days a year maybe. There are 5 wonderful days, but while you may be home playing the game every day, I did the game 6 months ago. Now it's done, and now you have it, and thanks for watching. So, yeah, and I will cross any genre that will have me. So boring corporate narrations, commercials, pharmaceutical videos, anything that's paying, well, now the minimum is industry standard rates, which I've come to insist on. But if you want me to talk and voice things that can't voice themselves, yes, I will. But the challenge is another audition and no feedback. Okay.
So there's a lot of levels within that challenge. There's an endurance level. There's a level of dealing with insecurity, meaning you don't have a sense of, I'm going to definitely have this job tomorrow. And how does that feel to live through?
It can get you down, but it's fortunate. The pandemic has actually helped because everything is so remote. In the old days, most auditions...
Please explain that for the fans because they may not understand.
Yeah. In the old days, you'd have to get up, go out of the house, or skip out on work.
Shower
and go to a casting studio. And the pandemic changed all that quite quickly. And it hasn't really returned. Casting directors and other professionals have said, well, this works remotely. Let's keep doing it. The challenge, the big challenge is when you're there in person, there's a casting director saying, well, that's nice, but try it this way. Maybe a little faster, a little slower, a little brighter. When you're doing things remotely, here's some vague instructions. Send us 2 or 3 takes of whatever you want. Okay, I hope this is what you like. And apparently sometimes, more often than not, it's not what they like, and someone else has booked the role. But you get used to it. My various coaches over the years have said, record it, and you set it and forget it. You don't dwell on it. If they're going to get back to you with a booking, yay. And if not, it wasn't meant to be, don't dwell on it. So I don't want to say I bang them out, but I bang them out. Sometimes I'll do a one take, and if they don't want a second one, they don't get a second one. Right. I like it, and if they don't like it, can't help you. Fortunately, Mom and Dad left a little bit in their will. It's helping along on the slow days. But beyond that, sometimes money comes in, and that's a wonderful thing.
And some people couldn't live with that gamble, in a sense of, that level of not having the reliable paycheck at the end of the week is, for many people, unimaginable.
It's not for everyone.
No, it's not.
It's not for everyone.
As the late radio psychologist Dr. Joy Brown would say when people were unhappy in their marriages, if you won the lottery today, would you stay or would you go? So if you think about it, of having money to live, I would love to have a day job again, because as much as I hated parts of the day job, there was a paycheck every 2 weeks. I don't have that now. But I wouldn't go back to the corporate world, because being my own boss, as much as it's financially gambling, it's the joy of, I don't feel like working now. I'll wait until I'm done with this chat with Dan and Eric, and then I'll do what I have to do. And I can get away with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's that catch-22, right? It's like, I want,
there's a trade-off.
I want this, but I also want I want the freedom. I mean, honestly, I worked both kinds of things my whole life. I've always had a staff job, and I freelanced. And then I never had a break. But moving here and doing it completely on my own, I can't imagine working for somebody else. I just can't. Now, that also means that, sometimes I fight with the boss, who's myself. It can get stressful sometimes, but no, I can't imagine that. And you're a family man. I have a family. Dan has a family. So there's other responsibilities that go along with that. But no, I hear you. And it is good that you also... You hustle. I mean, that's what you do. You mentioned the way the pandemic affected all of this. When I made the move down here, I pushed for, hey, I know I'm walking away from a lot of the business I had up there in the voiceover world because I'm stepping away from it, but I have a studio. I built a studio. I'm available. Well, out of sight, out of mind, Eric. And I knew that was going to be part of the deal. It only took, 10 years later and a terrible situation for everyone to go, hey, do you have a home studio? We need you, And it's like, oh, yeah, I've had a home studio for 10 years, okay? But like I said, I knew I was stepping away from a majority of the work. But it is interesting how that has changed the dynamic for us. The thing I do miss is the camaraderie of, even if they were competition, and I say that with quotes, in that waiting room. So many of the actors became my friends, because we were all seeing each other doing these auditions, and whether we got the booking or not, just seeing that group of people and catching up with them and talking to them, that camaraderie just doesn't exist anymore. And also the interaction with that casting director. You were talking about not getting that feedback. Well, that FaceTime that you have with that person when you are reading in front of them, and then they say they give you some direction, but also just that dynamic. They can report back to a client and say, I know you liked this person and that person, but this person, the first person, is really directable and so easy to work with. The second person, not so much. The casting director, I was one for many, many years. The casting director then actually has some input, helpful input to the client. You don't know that when I record remotely and send you my edited take. You don't know that. It sounds great, but what's going to happen when you hire me, right? There's no one to even ask. There's no sort of like filter system, and that dynamic. A good casting director is trying to get you the gig. Every person that reads for that casting director, they're trying to get them the gig. Here, we're just reading into the ether.
And the flip side of that is directed sessions now, where in the old days in his studio, back in the 40s, you'd be enclosed in a booth and there would be a talkback mic. So if they had stuff to say about you that they didn't want you to hear, they lift the button and they talk amongst themselves. Now in live sessions, very often, everyone's on the same channel and they're talking about you while you're there.
That's right.
And I'm always wondering, Do I laugh at what they're saying? They're saying something funny. Do I chime in? What do I do?
I'm right here.
Yes, hello. do you mind if I... Hello. Hi.
Well, I think the pandemic for a lot of voiceover people, there's this phrase I've used frequently since the pandemic hit, unintended consequences or unintended benefits. And for myself, even though the camaraderie is missed and a bit of that interaction, which is crucial to careers growing and opportunities blossoming, I can't be more grateful that I can do my work from home. I can actually be around for my kids and be there for them when they come home and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Makes my life so much more doable. But I want to switch off to a slightly different tack here. A couple more things that I really want to hear from Mike. You are only now at the age or getting to the age where your age matches the way that you sound.
Mm-hmm.
You were always being cast older than you truly were at the time because that was just the way your voice sounded to other people. Describe to me and to our listeners what that's like.
It's a delightful challenge to have. I have been asked at times, both in auditions and at bookings, to play younger, and compared to the younger sounding people that we know and love, when I do it, it just sounds like I'm being strangled. And even though sometimes my normal voice, which I forget what that is sometimes, has a younger quality, it's not the young heroes of the animated series that kids tend to prefer to watch. But
right. I mean, it's sort of like your youth gate starts at like 38.
Yeah, and
Right.
It's pretty much when I started doing this, when I booked Dr. Eggman at 38. And I just realized, based on the roles people wanted me to read for, that older, gruffer people seem to be a thing. And as you can see, the gruffness is an affectation, less so now because I've been talking for a while, but this part is this is fake by some magic that I can do. But the real voice doesn't have all that in there. And if I focus real hard, it can be nice and pure and melodic. And sometimes I get booked for that. I do ultra sultry narration, not to the Dan Green level of ultra sultry, but
Who does? I mean, please.
Exactly.
Come on.
What is this term, ultra sultry? What is
Ultra
this?
sultry. That's a Rocky and Bullwinkle reference. At one point, he's discussing he has an ultra sultry look, like a Hollywood superstar. So, yes,
Great. That's funny. I will take that as a compliment.
by all means.
He's going to use that in his next audition. Would you like the ultra sultry read?
I'm going to legally change my name to that.
Dan
Ultra
Ultra Sultry Green.
This is not about me. This is about Mike. But now, was there? I guess I was part of me was wondering, to portray an older person was part of your acting job.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in some of the material, that older archetype is in, all sorts of storytelling and animation included. I guess it would be fair to assume that for some of the animation stuff, the nuances of being older weren't so much a part of that kind of storytelling. But I was just wondering if that was a little bit of a bridge for you to make. Like, I'm not really as stationed as advanced as this character I'm portraying. What is it like to actually come at this moment from a more mature perspective?
As I've often said about 4 kids performing, oftentimes more is more. So
Yes.
bigger
Yes.
was better. So the older stereotypes were easy to do because I've watched
Right.
cartoons a large part of my life and I knew what old stereotype is. But as I am surrounded by more older people and also as I can engage the acting part of my brain, I can do old and feeble and heartstring pulling old people as well. There's just not often a call for that in the 4 kids stuff. But for example, I found much inspiration from my father-in-law who lived with us. I've shared stories about him in the booth, and I'll share some now. He was an old crotchety man. Shut up! And his persona found its way into numerous characters over the years, and deservedly so. And I owe a debt of gratitude to him as well. But yeah, so it helps to have crotchety old people around. And as I become an old crotchety person myself, the line is becoming much thinner.
I totally envision
much thinner.
The King of Queens set in your house. Yeah. With Jerry Stiller living in the basement.
Exactly right.
Well, we were also talking about your satin shirts, your fashion choices. There's another thing that Mike, I don't know if this is still true of Mike because I haven't actually seen him in years. But
We're going to fix that.
We got to fix that. We got to get a convention. We actually, we're still both on the East Coast, so we got to fix that. We got to go to Cats, like we keep saying. We got to go to the deli, like we
there's
keep saying
one
on Twitter.
even closer to where we are. We'll work out logistics, but there is a
Very
good
good,
deli
very
within
good.
spitting distance. But go on,
Excellent. Maybe we can get Erica in on that too.
Eric. You should come. Sure.
Yeah. But you used to wear this amazing vest that had everything in it.
The MacGyver vest.
Well, but I was going to say that, but MacGyver would have to piece things together that didn't mean to be together.
He
and
had
create
them
a tool,
already
but
assembled, yes.
It was in the vest, right? It's like, oh, do you need a Neumann 103 TLM? I have this in my vest.
Now
that's a kind of microphone.
Before he explains if he still does that, let's just go back to the age question because this is connected to the vest. When I first started working in the voiceover industry at 18, I could tell that a man was over the age of 40 if he wore a vest like that. What's the? It's a khaki vest with pockets. I knew right then and there that actor was at least 40 years old, and I thought, I guess that's what I'm going to have to get when I hit 40. So you were wearing the outfit that was older, like the way you sounded as in the characters, than you really were. You were already sort of setting it up. So I hope you still wear it.
I do, but it comes with a story.
Yes.
Back in the 80s, fanny packs were a thing.
Yes.
Yes.
And I realized the usefulness of it. You carry wallets. There were no cell phones back then, but I got a fanny pack because everyone had one, and I kept using it because it keeps stuff around. You don't. Have
It's
to
useful.
Yeah, and you don't have to reload your pockets every day. You just pop on the fanny pack, and what you need is there. And I lived with the fanny pack in a briefcase when I was going to work until one morning we were going to go out to a kids' concert to see, I want to say Laurie Berkner. Hi, kids. You might know Laurie Berkner is. Jason Roberts. Justin Roberts? It doesn't matter. It's not important. But there was a big Kid-a-Palooza thing. The kids were all psyched. And I went up to the office here in the attic to do something, bent down in the wrong way, and a lovely shooting pain down my leg. And I was calling, my toddler's son was alive. He's not dead. Let me rephrase that. My toddler's son was downstairs, and I said, "Come here, Dad needs help." And he couldn't really do much, but my wife is out. She came home. We determined I was in pain. Went to the hospital. Sciatica. Fantastic.
Yeah.
How old was I? I was mid-30s. But this is what happens to people as we age. So chiropractor said, well, the fanny pack's got to go. That's throwing you all out of balance. And I had seen ads for this Scotty vest, which is a vest for geeks, basically. It's not only pockets, but it has channels. So you can run cables, headphone cables at the time, from one pocket to another. And I said, someday that might be of use, but I'm not there yet. Suddenly, I was there. Got a Scotty vest, filled it up, progressed to various models. Even at one time, the boss, who was on social media far too often at the time, was looking for a voiceover for their commercial. I said, I'm a client and I'm a customer. And I did a commercial or two for them until they found other people. Fine. And I've progressed to different models of Scotty vests and have filled them up so much that I broke their warranty. They're supposed to be a lifetime warranty. Not for me. No, you overfill your pockets. We can't help you.
Wow.
But I have progressed to more expensive versions of the Scotty vest, but I wear it all the time. My son wore it at school. He had to get special permission to get the school crest embroidered on the sleeve of one of their jackets so he could wear it as part of his school uniform. But, oh yeah, still a big fan.
Now, if you could get one that was made out of satin.
It could be done, I suppose. And it's supposed to save you time at security lines at airports. Not the way I fill it up.
No,
I
with all
get
those
pulled out of
channels
line
in there, they're probably like, yeah, sir, I don't know when your flight is, but you're leaving tomorrow because we're going to need
out of
something.
line, empty
Yeah.
empty your pockets. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I know that on more than one occasion that whatever was in your vest solved a problem I urgently need solved.
Sure.
So
What do you need?
I love you in your vest.
Thank you.
Wow. So another thing, and maybe this will be the last thing that we touch on. There's this part of the hero's journey that is called Apotheosis. It refers to when you're at the height of your capabilities. So anything about that idea that you've really met every expectation and gone beyond any expectation you might have had for yourself as a creative performer, that every line that you're laying down is like gold, that you're having this ultimate moment of feeling like all of your creative energies are aligning and just everything feels right.
I may have already peaked.
Yeah,
some years
that's
back,
fair.
which is fine. But people are still asking me to do stuff. I still get booked. I still have repeat clients who know me from before, who don't even have me audition. And here, come do this. You're good. Come do this. So as long as people are asking me back, I'm doing something right. And people always say, well, you're going to retire? And I explain, retire from what? I'm working, but it's not work. There are still roles for old people, so as long as the voice is still functional or can be made functional with some type of medication, I will quite happily work as long as I'm still mildly coherent. And even if I'm not coherent, the kids in the old Peanuts cartoon couldn't read, but they could edit words together and make it sound like they did.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that Eric and I even entertain the idea of retirement.
No.
But what it doesn't have to be a specific show or even a specific role. But what was that like for you to feel like you had achieved that kind of mastery?
The fact that kids know me from their childhood and have grown up with me is a really cool feeling. You were my childhood. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you couldn't have a better childhood, but thank you. Yeah, the fact that I'm part of kids' childhood, and I guess I'm a part of history such that it is. But, it's the first time I saw my name in a credit in something, I said, look at that. That'll live on now. That's pretty cool. So,
right.
Yeah, just getting to do this and people liking what I do. And there have been, I have had some memorably bad experiences, and I take those in stride. I'll share two quick stories. One of which was a guy who probably should have been using artificial intelligence before it was a thing, booked me for some commercial, don't remember how, don't want to remember how, but he got me on the line. We were doing a directed session, and he said, okay, I'm going to read a line. You're going to read it back to me exactly the way I did. And I thought, you can't mean that. So he read me the line, gave me the dreaded line read. I gave it a little spin. He said, no. I'm going to read a line. You're going to read it back exactly the way I did. I see. You want to play all the parts, but you can't. Okay, turn off the brain. Here you go.
Mike, you don't have to pretend that Eric isn't here.
Come on, man. I'm right here.
Thank you very much. And then the other one, which I guess could be the Dan story, it wasn't at all. But I was recording some serious narration for some pharmaceutical item, and I have fun, even when I'm being serious, because I goof up. And when I goof up, the train goes off the tracks, and I make sure to keep on powering that locomotive, singing show tunes and Ethel Merman impressions. Yes. And at one point, the director, who was in the other room, but there was no visual on either one of us, said, don't have so much fun, please. What?
Wow. And now, for those who don't know, the stock, I don't know how to direct, but I'm going to give you some direction, is just have fun with it. So that's very ironic that, don't have so much fun. Oh, yeah. Wow, that's good. That's good. I like that. I'm going to work with that.
Now, had I been had a little more cojones, I would have said, this can be edited, right? This isn't going into the final product, sir. But it didn't say that. But even the crappy moments, and there have been, people who had no business directing or producing anything. But even so, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
Yes, and you bringing that up as well, that dynamic in our business, that's part of doing what we do as part of a profession is, if we're just doing the stuff for ourselves and putting creative things out there, you don't necessarily have to get any feedback. You don't even, sometimes you don't want it. I'm not doing it for feedback. But in doing this for a living, trying to get paid for it as well, we have to know when to bite our tongues and remember that we're being hired to do something. And if they want to keep me longer to do it, it's something they're paying for. If they have something in their head, it is frustrating when it's something that is name recognition, and you're like, well, this is not how I would do it if you want me as a spokesperson. But it's also part of why you have continued to work, is that you are able to step back and realize that in that moment with the line readings and whatever, okay, I'm being hired to do this. I'm going to get through this session and move on to something else, instead of reacting in that moment, which could have cost you potential follow-up work. So it's a tough thing,
sure.
but it shows that you understand the business side as well as the creative side.
Right, and in a way, there's also. Oh, go ahead, Mike, please.
Thank you. I'm reminded of my worst audition experience. This was very early in the process when I was working with some potentially big agents who were sending me on some potentially big auditions. And one of them, it was Celebrity Deathmatch. They send people for those sound-alikes, whether you can necessarily sound alike or not. And usually you go in and say, well, maybe this will work. Here goes nothing. Did it. Read for it. The person running the casting got up, walked out. I guess we're done here. Okay, thank you. In the middle of my thing.
Oh.
Alrighty.
Wow.
Wow. And I then got up and walked out too, because I guess that's what we were doing.
It was such a moving experience for them that they needed a moment.
They needed to run and tell all their colleagues how they should hire me now.
Their bowels moved as well, and they needed to.
We can only.
Yes.
Alrighty. Thanks for trying.
Well, that's just damn rude. The comment that I was going to make when you bite your tongue, there's also some advantage to being able to say, I was just the actor. I was doing what I was told, right? You don't like that performance. Well, I only was partly involved in those choices, you know?
Yeah, but it's hard because a lot of people don't know what goes into the creation of that. And then when they hear the final product, you just go...
Right, they just blame the actor.
Yeah, they blame the actor.
Know?
Like, how come you guys changed that? It's like, I just read what they had on the page.
Right, it wasn't up to me to change the take on the character or... You know, if it's just bad acting, of course I'll take that rap.
Sure.
Yeah,
I do that all the time.
Blame...
I do that all the time.
Right. You take raps from me. I appreciate that.
It's usually a very collaborative process, or it should be.
It is.
You know,
it is.
I may give a suggestion. You can ignore it. That's fine. But sometimes you'll take my suggestion, and great, everyone's happy. But yeah, sometimes the director can be a little more authoritarian.
Yeah, and a good director is only trying to highlight the skills of their actor. It is a partnership. Even if there's someone that's tough, I am known as a tough director, but it's because I also know what the potential is from my actor. I know what they can do, and but it is a team effort. A bad director is only trying to get their way or doesn't know how to convey what they're after. A good director looks at that situation and says, I know what I can get from this person, and when they are not giving it to me, I'm going to find a way to communicate it so I can bring it out so that when they shine, I shine. Right? I mean, it's a mutually beneficial situation, but there's too much of, even a line reading. I think we talked about this on one podcast when I was directing Christopher Lloyd on a movie, and he had to match lip flap. And of course, a great actor like Christopher, each read was different pace, different inflection, because he was being creative. And the producer was like, I need them to be exactly the same and have them read them the same way, but a little faster. Can you give him a line reading? And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And then Christopher was like, could you give me a line reading? And I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to give you line readings. He loved it. He was like, you do this so well. And I'm like, oh, whatever. That's not how I want to direct you. But that's the only time. If the actor is truly asking, can you explain this to me? Can you give me that? But anyway, yes. I never do that with Dan Green. I never do it.
Someday
what I would like to do is to direct our conversation to a close today. But before we do, Mike, if you had some pearls of wisdom to offer to some of your fans, what would they be? Fans, if maybe that they're pursuing this line of work, or just any life advice in general. Being a successful performer as you are in this field is no easy trick. You learn some lessons along the way. So anything you'd like to offer as things to think about or things that helped you through?
I have gained much wisdom in my years, I'm proud to say. But one thing I can say that's actually useful in this context, if you want to do this, learn to act, please. It's called voice acting, not just because you can do voices. It's acting. One of my phrases, I'm developing a glossary of a vocabulary, of a list of phrases. Voice is a specialization, not a restriction. So there are those who will say, well, you're not a real actor. You're a voice actor. I say, no. You learn to act first. Community theater, school theater, learn to act on a stage with people. I assume that still happens at the pandemic. I'm not sure. But learn to act with people, because eventually, if you're doing this, you're going to be in a booth imagining what other people would sound like if you were talking to them. And that's a skill that you've got to have from doing it for real. But also a director is going to expect you to be able to act. If you read like you read in the third grade, I am reading a paragraph from a book and it sounds like I am reading, they're not going to ask you back unless that's the read they wanted, which probably isn't that. Our trick, as I love to say, we can read aloud without sounding like we're reading. Learn to be able to do that. And then once you get there, leave your inhibitions at the door. More is more. Be crazy so that you can be pulled back. Not so crazy, but I'm glad to see where we could have been.
Don't have so much fun with
sound advice.
Exactly.
Right, don't have so much fun with it. Sound advice, indeed. All right, great. Well, so, gentlemen, let's bring this part 2 of episode 18 to a close. And, Mike, again, thanks for joining us.
Oh, certainly. When we meet for Delhi, which we are going to do, I'm going to direct you. Dan, mustard on that? Please. How dare you?
And I will follow that direction.
Good.
Because I'll be putting it on Erica. And you will be quite...
Tongue sandwiches.
Spicy.
Hey, now. And Eric, as always, a pleasure to be talking with you today.
You too, Dan. And thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for visiting with us and making me laugh, as always.
Oh, thank you. As I said to Dan when he reached out, I thought you'd never ask. So thank you so much for asking.
Well, it won't be the last time. Our fans tend to like to have our guests come back. So there'll be another round for sure.
We can record over lunch. Fine.
And anybody who's listening, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation. Please like if you get a chance. And also, Andromeda Productions is on Patreon. And if you can afford as little as $1 a month, we'd greatly appreciate it. And we'll start putting some exclusive content on Patreon. We're just very busy with doing what we're doing and some other things as well. But we always appreciate the time that you give us so we can give you a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what you're dealt.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stuart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Andromeda, always a sound choice.